Michelle, that's an excellent question. Erik Fisher, licensed psychologist, joining us. You know, Michelle talks about a mother gives birth to the child. She should feel so close and have such a bond. We're hearing that this mother was actually very jealous of her little girl from almost the beginning when she was born. How do you rectify that?
Well, the first thing that I look at here in the case is that her history of adoption. We don't know what happened in the first 7 years of her life before she was adopted. Just because somebody may be adopted into a loving home, sometimes all the love in the world can't undo what happened the first formative years of her life. And people with attachment disorders, which often kids with adoption issues can develop, they can develop attachment disorders, they don't connect to people the same way they would. She might have felt like if she had this child that it would bring her and her husband together, but then she saw the child as a barrier between her and her husband. And often with attachment disorders, there's a very deep-seated rage that bubbles up inside, and not everybody sees it. Kids with attachment disorders and adults who often develop borderline personality disorders around one set of people can appear wonderful and fabulous, but then in other situations, they can then be very vicious. And that one of the things the father said was that in this situation, she would often be verbally abusive to the daughter, was one of the reports that I read in this case.
A Texas mother allegedly killed her 4-year-old daughter and stuffed her in the car trunk because reports claim she was jealous of the 4-year-old little girl. Parsons' common-law husband was pulling his daughter Victoria out of the trunk, where she had trauma to the head and chest and was not breathing. The father was unable to revive her.
You know, and other people are saying this was a very loving mother in Texas that loved her child, but people are also saying that she had a history of verbal abuse and anger, and that she even said at one point that she would rather go to prison than continue to have her child. Had a lot of anger toward Victoria. I want to go to Erik Fisher, licensed psychologist. If you make a threat, okay, people make threats all day, every day. When do you know that a threat is actually serious? Because she told her husband, if you divorce me or try to divorce me, I'm going to kill her.
Right, and you don't have any history of violence in this situation. So a lot of times people do say things, and people will say almost anything to keep somebody in your relationship. But I don't see, if I'm looking at this from the outside without having interviewed her, knowing a lot of the details of the case, what I'm looking at, though, is that to me, it almost seems like this would have been more to punish him, because she wanted him to feel the pain. She told him to look in the car. And even going to the police and reporting it, she's saying, I'm following through on my threat. You didn't pay attention to me. And why she would do this is a reenactment of her abandonment wound. You know, if she didn't attach to a parent.
You know, a lot of people are not going to want to hear that, because she's been charged with capital murder of intentionally killing her